so a little bit milder today. So today's job is first of all bunging a hole up in the hull. I'm going to make a start fitting the new instruments. Under here there's a hole here which was for the depth gauge. The one on the other side is for speed, and that had a paddle wheel. I've had to open that out a little bit from a new transducer, which is of course not the same size, it's bigger. So what I've done here, I put a little bit of a chamfered edge on the outside, and I've done the same on the inside. So what that will do, it will create like an edge of the hull like that, and so the polyurethane epoxy that I'm putting in will form like a plug which can neither go in or out, my theory. Basically, because if anything bumps this, like your trailer or anything like that, you don't want that to be punctured through and end up with another hole in the hull. I have filled that actually, and I'm hoping that there's no air bubbles in it. So on the inside of the hull is where I filled it with the polyurethane filler. Give it a nice big splurge. There's the hole for the bead transducer. This stuff that I've used is a 2-pack. I was recommended it by some of our colleagues in America. So there's a self-mixing nozzle, and then inside here 2-pack. So this is 610, and it's a polyurethane 2-part epoxy adhesive. Very well recommended from over the pond. Yeah, I'm going to give it a go. So I filled that. That's going to take longer to set today because of the temperature. It's only about 8 or 9 degrees. So this is the speed transducer socket, and this does come with a blank that you can put in, you know, for if you are, I don't know, leaving the boat or taking it out of the water. So I'm going to seal that in. I'm going to show you what I've got for that. I've got a different product for that. This is my depth transducer echo sounder. So this kit is from NASA Marine, so it's NASA Clipper. I think this is a bit of a swizz really, because they give you 3 options of how to mount this. You can mount this under the hull, but it's so the whole thing is under the hull, and it's quite a raised unit sort of thing. So it's got a plastic unit that this fits in, and it's like an oval shape, and then there's 2 bolts which go through your hull. So straight away you've got 3 holes through your hull, but it does stick out quite a way. It sort of sticks down below the hull that far and a bit more. I don't think ideal really. The other way of mounting this is in this tube inside the boat, because this will work through fiberglass. So basically what's going to happen is I'm going to araldite this tube to hull. This is oil. You put the oil in there. Once it's sealed, you try and cut it so that this is upright, and then you put the cap on, fasten it down to the cap, and have your transducer sort of near the bottom, and that works through the hull. However, when you've already bought this, it's another 25 quid to get this kit from NASA, which I think is a little bit of a swizz, because on its own that's no good. You can't do anything with that. So this is the fitting for the speed transducer, and I'm going to fix that in with some 291i. This is a specific marine sealant. It's partially non-setting. It doesn't set solid. It's specifically for stuff like this, and I'm also going to use it on the engine mount. Got it in from the outside. So what I'm going to do is put a nice little bead around there. And then drop that washer over. Now, I don't really want to put sealant on top of that washer, and I'm kind of thinking I've got a really good bead on the outside flange of that fitting up against the hull, and then that little bit of sealant around the inside. And by the time I've tightened this down, I think that will be pretty watertight. Doesn't have to be mega tight. There we go. I don't think there's a size of boat that you can get where you can end up doing jobs in large spaces. I think pretty much any jobs you do on a boat, you're in a small space. I've decided not to do the depth kit today with this tube because A, it's too cold for the araldite to set. I haven't got any sandpaper to roughen the hull really, because you need a good key to the hull, because otherwise if anything ever touches this, it will knock it off. So I'm going to leave this for now and do it another time, but I haven't brought any rough sandpaper with me, and you need to roughen the outside of this for the araldite to key to it. Also, I'm thinking of positioning it in the back of the boat. I spoke to a guy from NASA Marine, and he was talking about a distance away from this of about, I think he said 200 or 300 mil. Gonna struggle to do that in this space, so give it a go down the back of the boat. And I'm also not sure if the cable's long enough, 'cause it's a coaxial cable. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have a go at mounting it down there. So back at the boat, I'm underneath the cockpit. It's a bit cramped. There's a bit of space. You can move. I think I'm going to put it this side. Being towards the back of the boat, it's more likely to be in the water all the time. In that bow space up there, there was just not enough space, I didn't think, to get away from the speed transducer. I spoke to, I think it was a guy at NASA Marine, or I had an email or something from him, because I was asking about how close you could have it. I think he said like 200, 300 millimeters away from that electromagnetic speed sensor, which quickly becomes more of the V at the front of the boat. So it means that the tube's got to be more of an angle, and it also means that it's more chance of coming out the water. So for instance, if you are beating in some choppy water, so the boat's leaning on one side, and say the transducer's on the left hand side, the boat's leaning to the right, chances are that it's going to have more time out of the water. So you have to have water in contact with the hull underneath this for this transducer to work. But I've got a good thickness all the way around the tube. And so then what happens next is, when that's gone off, put the oil in, I suppose. There's like a special oil, but you could use olive oil or something like that. So we put the oil in, then put the transducer in. There's a cap that goes on with a little screw in and a nut just to hold it in position. That's well out of the way of any interference anyway. So it's the next day, and the epoxy's gone off around the tube. Got a good seal all the way around. So what I've set up the depth of the transducer to reach the bottom of the hull. So like the black cap, there's a nut either side of that, plastic nut. So I've set the transducer so it's held by the cap at the bottom of the tube. Then you get a little bottle of oil with the kit. So pour the oil in, make sure it's not running out the bottom, and then slowly make sure the transducer's clean. Then push that in the tube slowly. It takes a little bit of pushing in, don't force it too fast, and then screw down the little self tapper, and that secures it in place. And then the cable will be routed around and will come up to the instrument here, and this is it'll go in there actually. No, it'll go in there, depth. So that instrument's mounted. So that one's all ready. These seem really loose. You would think that these things would, once they're on, but that could easily come off. There's nothing holding that on. I've discovered that my compass has got red illumination, which is pretty cool, and it's never ever been connected. There's just been tape around it just holding the cable in. So I'm going to connect that up and just have that on all the time. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put some stick-on trunking down here. Then all this wiring from my panels and from that will go in and go down there. I've positioned the speed transducer in the front and got the cable all the way down the side of the boat. And then it comes up here and goes into this NMEA transducer. So what this does, it takes the signal from the speed transducer. I think probably partly this produces the electrical impulses that it puts into the water, and then in turn it measures, I think, the return of those impulses to get a speed. What I'm thinking is, though, that this won't necessarily tell me speed over ground. This will just tell me speed over water. So if you're ever going with or against the tide, it will only be able to tell me how fast water's going under the boat. So if the water's moving, let's say at 2 knots, and I'm doing 2 knots, so our total speed is 4, I think that this will only show 2. Anyway, so we've got the transducer wired into there, and then we've got to get power to it, which is that, and then this plugs into the instrument, and that's just a 2-core there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this off, and then I'm going to extend some 2-core up here, and then plug that lead there into the instrument, and then just join it in a trunking. So yeah, so quite pleased with what I've got done really. Mounted a new fuse box there because the electrical system on this boat is pretty basic in that there is one circuit breaker on there which is probably about 20 amps, something like that, and also these switches are like, how old's the boat? 97, so 29 years old, not really been used, and I've found that the contacts were probably a little bit tarnished on the inside, so not perfect. So I'm going to replace that, but I will keep that to go, you know, if I ever sell the boat, I will keep that because that's a Catalina engraved yacht switch panel. Found on Amazon a waterproof switch panel with 8 switches, so I'm going to fit that all nice and new. Fuse box, and I've also put a red LED in there. So yes, I've got quite a bit done over these last couple of days. It's difficult having the boat here away from home because you come and do a job, but there's always something extra that you need. I'm getting there. Of all the jobs that I've got, I'm sort of getting quite a few ticked off. What I need to do at home is see if I can get the covers dry cleaned. I need to take all of this stuff out of here, and I'm going to give the boat a good clean. I've got some of this Barkeeper's Friend power spray because there's all sorts of gunk and that on the sides of this boat. It won't have been cleaned for years. I'm going to strip it all out. I'm going to find out what I need to do with those plywood cap-ins, whether I sand them down or wipe them with something, I don't know, because it looks like they've got a bit of maybe mildew. I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do with this kitchen. I was kind of thinking about it this morning. It's not a good design, it really isn't. That space where that gas canister is, if that is where they intend you to put some kind of cooker, a stove, a gas stove, it's going to be a gas stove, you can't use it over here because of that. And also, would you get one that would fit in that space, sort of thing? I think that space is probably a little bit small for one of those suitcase gas heaters. And then you've got 4 cup holders over there. They're well out of the way, aren't they? This table is tiny. There's 4 berths in this boat, and you struggle to get 2 people eating at this. Yeah, so I was kind of thinking of redesigning this. Do I really need a sink in this boat for what I'm going to do with it? So what I was thinking was redesign this and make it like an L shape, so coming out here, and then have it so that a double ring gas stove will fit on here, and then you've got maybe a little bit of storage stroke worktop space there. As it is at the minute, it's just not that usable. So I'm going to wrap this episode up. There's quite a few jobs there started on the boat, and I'm going to continue those in another episode. But just had a delivery, so I'll just show you what we've had come this morning, and this is for another couple of jobs which I'll cover later, but I just wanted to show you these. So these are deck organisers, and I've got these from Force 4 Chandlery, and I quite like these spin lock ones. You can get these in various numbers of sheaves. This is a twin one, and these will also bend conform to the curve of a deck, if there is one, sort of thing. And I also quite liked them because you can stack them, so it kind of future proofs them. So I'm going to fit one of these on each side. Certainly on the starboard side, going to be both of these used up. On the other side, possibly both of those used up. But if I need to add any more, I just get another one of these and just stack it on top, and it doubles up. I just like the idea that you can stack them, so you don't end up having to completely reorganize your deck. The other thing that I've got is another clutch. There's one on the starboard side. I've never had one before, but I do really like them. They're so quick and easy to use. Again, spin lock, really good make. Not a lot of money. This is interesting packaging. This whole box just clips apart. So I got a double one. So again, this is for the port side, and this is going to be for a couple of lines that I've got planned for there. And the other thing I like about this is you get a whole sheet of stickers which go on that space there on the levers, which just makes it a bit handy, I suppose, for when you've got, you know, other crew on your boat. So yeah, really looking forward to fitting those. It's going to be spanking new organisation of rigging. So I'm going to leave it there on this episode. It's got long enough, and I'll catch you in the next one when I will advance some of those projects.